Hello and welcome. This is the webinar on college in the time of COVID for incoming students and families. We want to welcome you. My name is Heather Wingert and I'm the Parent Community Relations Manager at Warren Wilson College. We will be having many campus leaders joining us for a panel at the end of President Morton's presentation. But first, I want to introduce to you our Vice President for Enrollment and Marketing, Brian Lechte.
Thank you, Heather. It's a pleasure to be here today with you all. My name is Brian Lechte, and I'm the Vice President for Enrollment and Marketing here at Warren Wilson College. I've been at the college for 7 years now. 2 years as a student. I transferred here from Ohio State, and 5 years in the admissions department. I will be moderating the Q&A throughout the presentation. We will wait to answer all questions until the end. We may not get to every question, but we will finish the presentation on the hour and stay a few minutes after that to answer as many of your questions as we can. You may submit your question using the Q&A box. If you're unfamiliar with Zoom, you'll find the Q&A box as you hover over your screen with your mouse. And our colleagues in advancement will also be monitoring the Q&A. Now I would like to introduce President of Warren Wilson College, Dr. Lynn Morton. President Morton joined Warren Wilson in the summer of 2017 after spending more than 20 years at Queen's University of Charlotte, where she was a faculty member, a dean, and finally a provost. She has made a huge impact on the Warren Wilson community in her time here. She has put us on an increased enrollment trajectory, traveled all over the country meeting with alumni and donors, and she has worked to create a vision for Warren Wilson that harnesses the distinctiveness of this place to open doors for new programs and partnerships. It's my pleasure to introduce President Lynn Morton.
Thank you so much, Brian. Welcome, everybody. It's a pleasure to be able to meet with you like this. Really appreciate your attendance. Why are we doing this? Because we are student-centered. We love our students. I know you have so many questions, and we wanted to make sure that you, as prospective students and your families, had an opportunity to hear how students are at the center of the experience, what our plans are for managing through this pandemic, and how we made some of the decisions that we've made. Please know that your well-being is always our central concern. And we have noticed in our own students in this past spring how resilient and how persistent they are. And I know that this group will be just as resilient and persistent. So I'll talk a little bit about the impact of COVID-19 on higher education. And as prospective college students and your families, I'm sure you have been following this very, very closely. So a lot of what I'm going to say here will not be a surprise, but I will try to make it personal and talk about how this worked for us here at Warren Wilson College. So first of all, this was an international health crisis. It continues to be. There were no clear guidelines. There we were in March, really watching what was happening, seeing what other colleges were going to do, and listening to our local health authorities. And it became very quickly clear that we were going to need to respond to the pandemic as other colleges were. We know that this pandemic has had a huge impact on families, unemployment, student income, family income, and all the uncertainty that comes along with an economic crisis. Going to remote learning was amazing for us just because I could not believe how quickly we pivoted. Our faculty, who typically value experiential learning and in-person on-ground classes, were able to, within a couple of days, go to remote learning. But I won't tell you that it was easy for anyone. And I know you had the same experience in your own schools. There were many, many challenges in being in remote learning. And when I referred to your persistence and your resilience, I'm sure that you experienced those qualities in yourself as you had to navigate that. We are experiencing pretty much universal uncertainty. And every day, and sometimes we say every hour, we're getting more information from our local health authorities. And I will talk about those collaborations during this presentation. But things are changing quickly. And it has been very disappointing to see the increasing number of cases, mostly due to people not adhering to CDC guidelines. Nevertheless, we see a strong student interest in returning to campus. For many of our students, this feels like their home, and they want to come back to the Swannanoa Valley. One thing we have in our favor is our relatively rural location. We're located close enough to Asheville, but we're on 1,150 acres in a valley in a county that has fewer cases than many counties in the state, and certainly less than we're seeing in the nation. But I don't want to offer you empty promise. We know that things are changing fast, and we are going to do our best to make the decisions we need to make in the most timely manner, with student well-being always at the center of what we do. So how have these decisions been made? Well, first of all, we really thought about the impact of closing on our community, the impact of all of the big and small decisions that we've had to make since we closed on March 20th. Our priorities were always the well-being of our faculty, staff, and our students. And that emphasis on well-being made some of these decisions very difficult. So for example, shutting down was the toughest decision I think I've ever had to make in my entire career in higher education. We knew that there were some students who did not want to leave campus. They felt safer here. We had some students who could not leave campus. They were international students, or unfortunately, they did not have safe places to return to. And so we had about 40 students remain in hardship housing. Since that time, about 10 or so have left and gone other places for the summer, and we still have about 30 remaining on our campus. We had to consider how best to serve our students in this new world of remote learning. So one of the things we offered was a credit, no credit option for the coursework. Students were told at the end of the semester what their grade was going to be, and then they could opt just to get the credit for the course, but not the grade. We thought that this gave them more flexibility and more control over their education. We certainly wanted students who wanted to take the grade to have it. Some of them need those grades for graduate school. Some of them worked really hard and were making good grades. So we wanted to give them that option. But we totally understood that there were some students who struggled with remote learning for a variety of reasons, and that is why we offered that option. I think you can see in those kinds of options that we do our very best to serve our students. Our virtual commencement was another hard decision. We weighed very carefully our seniors' desire to be back on campus and walk as they had planned to for 4 years. But as many of you experienced with your high school graduations, eventually we decided that that was not a responsible choice, particularly as we were still trying to figure out how to contain and control the virus. I was very proud of our virtual commencement. And even though my hood was completely on crooked, and I think my hat was too, it turned out to be a wonderful, wonderful event. And you can go find it on YouTube if you'd like to see it. We have an expression here. It's called "So Wilson." And I think that our virtual commencement was so Wilson. It really captured the individual attention that we have for our students. And at the end, you'll see faculty and staff being videotaped in advance with messages for our graduating seniors. Overall, we would call it a success, but we are certainly looking forward to having our commencement on ground at the earliest opportunity. So I'm going to highlight some of our protocols, but please remember that these are outlined in OWL in this together. That's our guide to reopening, and you'll find many details there. We are following CDC guidelines, and we intend to be very strict about those guidelines. We are planning to open, and we are planning to remain open. The only reason that we would not remain open would be some sort of edict from the government or the state. The reason for this is that when we sent students home in March, there were relatively few cases across the country. And so we were sending them back into areas that were remarkably safe in some cases. We have a very different situation now. We feel that it might be irresponsible for us to send students home in October. They might be going to states with far worse caseloads than we have here in Western North Carolina. Although cases in North Carolina have continued to increase, as have cases in Buncombe County, we are finding that we are holding steady in many ways, and there are other states that are more impacted. Because we do not plan to close, it will be up to individual families as to their comfort level with their student remaining on campus. Our start date has been moved up a little bit. And I would say also that because we are going to remain open from August 17th until semesters end on November 20th, we made the decision to not promise refunds of room and board. The residence halls will be available and we will shelter in place. We have quarantine space available just down the street. We have rented an entire building at a facility that is close by, and students will be cared for there should they have to isolate or quarantine. And we will bring food and other support. We will have a one-day fall break so that students are not tempted to leave campus, go other places, and then return, possibly carrying the virus with them. Semesters end will be on December 3rd, with exams at the end of the semester being fully remote. From the very beginning, I have been in close contact with our local health authorities, most specifically MAHEC, which stands for Mountain Area Health Education Center. Early on, all of the presidents in this part of Western North Carolina and the state system chancellors began meeting with MAHEC health officials to draft our guidelines to determine whether we could open and to decide what we needed to do to open with the well-being of our faculty, staff, and students at the forefront. We have been meeting every single week and going over those protocols. All of the 6 higher education institutions in Western North Carolina, here in our area, have been using the same guidelines and the same authorities and asking the same questions. At this point, MAHEC supports the opening of all 6 higher education institutions. We monitor the conditions daily, and as I often say, hourly. We also have been in touch with county health officials on a regular basis. Our health center is keyed into the county and any new guidance that they may be giving. Additionally, we have political connections in Buncombe County. 2 of our alumni are in county government, and I have spoken with the county commissioner several times. So we are very keyed in. In addition, I serve on a task force in North Carolina. The Department of Health and Human Services has formed a special higher ed task force that I was invited to join. And about every other week, we are meeting with the Department of Health and Human Services and their officials to talk about our reopening plans. The choice to reopen is difficult. It is hard to know sometimes how you measure the health impacts of a virus like this against the public health impact of remaining closed. And overall, our higher ed authorities have said that it is better for us to try to open. The National Council on Pediatrics has echoed that advice. And today we heard from our governor in North Carolina about a plan to open public schools carefully and safely, observing all the CDC guidelines for proximity, duration of contact, in other words, social distancing, which we call physical distancing, the wearing of masks, the sanitation of surfaces, and making sure that we pair remote possibilities for learning along with in person. And we will continue to develop these local partnerships and stay very keyed in to what's going on in higher education nationally and in the state of North Carolina. Because we are a community, we have drafted the Warren Wilson College Community Commitment that all faculty, staff, and students will be asked to sign. I'm not going to read it to you. You can see it right there. But it commits us to care for one another, to be careful, to really consider our contacts so that contact tracing is easier, to wear our masks. Every student will be given a mask upon arrival, but will be asked to bring them as well. And I'm going to sport for you right now my most recent addition to my mask collection. An owl for Warren Wilson College. We're going to observe the 3 W's. Wait at a distance, wash hands often, use hand sanitizer, and wear your mask. We must insist as a community that we follow these guidelines. The reason is that the CDC and MAHEC have said loud and clear that if you follow these guidelines carefully, it is as effective as a moderately effective vaccine. And so we are hopeful with North Carolina's recent rule that masks must be worn in public, that we will start to see the flattening again because we are observing those CDC guidelines on our campus and in our state and in our area in Western North Carolina. So here are our expectations for the Warren Wilson community that I've just gone over in a high-level way. You can see that we are going to ask students to take their own temperatures, and we are working on protocols for how we can do temperature checks across campus. We will have daily cleaning and disinfecting of all spaces. Residence hall common areas and bathrooms will be cleaned by professional cleaners. This summer, we contracted with a cleaning company that has adopted the best practices for cleaning in the time of COVID-19. We are going to make sure that we remind everyone about personal hygiene, such as hand washing and hand sanitation. Sanitation will be provided in areas across campus. Hand sanitizer will be everywhere, and we will expect people to use it. We will not have large gatherings. This morning, we talked about some feedback that we had gotten in my cabinet, our leadership team, about people being nervous about what we had put in our FAQ around students leaving campus. We're going to strengthen that language. We know that some students will need to leave campus. They may have cars, they may have jobs off campus, they may have families that need them to come and see them, or particularly if they're local. But we will strengthen the language about students remaining on campus, and we will not be providing the kinds of transportation that we have in the past to ferry large groups of students into our community. We are a very involved campus. We do have community commitments, and we will be honoring those and continuing our community engagement, but we're going to do it remotely whenever possible, and only when it is safe, or as safe as possible, and only when those community partners agree to follow our expectations for our communities. I believe everyone is also aware that this has been a really interesting time for our entire country. There has been a reckoning across the nation about social justice. Warren Wilson has taken a position that Black Lives Matter. We had already in our strategic plan a strategic imperative around diversity, equity, and inclusion. But our Black Student Union did a wonderful job of acting as a catalyst and an inspiration for us to move more quickly and more specifically. You can see the BSU demands as well as the college's response. We have committed to 2 new positions. One has already been appointed, a director of DEI initiatives. That is being led by one of our history professors, Dr. Delia Goodwin, and she will be forming a task force to really help us figure out where we want to go next. We will have a new position that will be advertised next year for a Chief Diversity Officer who will serve on our cabinet. We want to be inclusive and thoughtful about our steps. We also will be held accountable for progress in this area. It will be a totally collaborative planning process. And when students are back in classes again, we will definitely have student participation. Our senior team met last week with the BSU and began charting a course for how BSU and students can be a part of this important work going forward. So now we're going to open it up for some questions, and I can see from my Q&A that there are some already in there. As we said, Brian Lechte is going to moderate this, but we have some really important folks in the room who can answer some real specific questions, and they are going to introduce themselves. Brian, I'll turn it over to you now.
Great. Now we will be introducing our panelists. Got a team of folks from various areas of campus, and we'll go in this order so folks can prepare their remarks. We'll start with Jay, Kathy, Belinda, Johnny, Paul, Tachi, and finally Zan.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jay Roberts. I'm the Vice President for Academic Affairs here at Warren Wilson College. I'm on about week 3 on the job and excited to be here at Warren Wilson, even in these strange and extraordinary times. I have 25 plus years of experience in higher education as a faculty member and also as an administrator. And I chose Warren Wilson because I really believe it's a special community and it's an exceptional teaching and learning environment for young people. And I'm excited to be part of the webinar and happy to answer any questions that you might have about the academic side of the house. Again, welcome.
Hi, I'm Kathy Kramer. I'm the Vice President for Applied Learning, and that means that I work with our work program, community engagement, and our Center for Integrated Advising and Careers. And I've been at Warren Wilson for 15 years in a variety of roles, so I look forward to answering your questions as well.
Good afternoon. I'm Belinda Burke. I'm the CFO and Vice President of Administration and Finance. I've been at the college 1 year. So needless to say, it's been a very interesting year with the COVID and learning my way through. Things that report up to me include, of course, accounting and finance, facilities, IT, human resources, financial aid. So I look forward to answering any questions you may have today.
Hello, everyone. This is Johnny Williamson. I am the Director of Athletics and Adventure Sports, and I have been at the college for a little over 2 years now, and I look forward to answering questions as well.
Hi, everybody. I'm Paul Perrine. I'm the Vice President for Student Life. This is my 10th year at Warren Wilson. I've been in higher ed in student affairs for about 30 years, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Hi, folks. I'm Tachi Smith. I'm the Director of Student Activities, which includes orientation, clubs, and student organizations and commencement. So I handle all of those. This is my 5th year at Warren Wilson. I came from Ohio, where I had done about a 23-year stint there, different things. So we're excited to have you all come to campus in just a few short weeks. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. I'm Zan Garland, Vice President for Advancement at Warren Wilson. I've been here for 5 years, and I am in charge of most of our external relations with families and alumni and the community in this area, as well as our supporters. I'm also going to be helping Brian moderate this Q&A. With 28 questions already in the queue, I think we're going to definitely not get to every single question. But again, we published an FAQ this past Friday, and we'll have another one coming out this coming Friday, because we realize that as questions get answered, more questions get generated. And so we'll be sure to continue to answer questions, even if we don't get to every single one that you've asked on this webinar. But I will kick us off and just jump right back to Tachi. There's a couple questions at the top of the list about the one parent move-in and whether parents can switch off, or if it's just one person total who can attend move-in with their students.
Sure, those are great questions. And, you know, in any other time, any other year, we sort of invite every family member you want to bring to campus. But because we've really spent the time to think about move-in and how many people in a hallway and stairwell and all that sort of thing is why we asked to limit how many folks are coming with each new student. Yes, we would definitely do if you can trade off and sort of one person help do the heavy lifting and then the other person, you know, and that person come back to the car or another, or actually leave campus, and then the other person, the other parent or family member helper sort of help settle the room, that's fine. The other thing, the question I think came up, Zanchu, about when folks will find out about their move-in time. And we had hoped to send that out on Monday. We were waiting to see some other pieces that will definitely go out tomorrow morning. And what you will find on that is folks who filled out the survey, we have honored those requests of the days and times that you picked. Other folks, it was great that you were pretty flexible so we could fill you in. But what you'll know is that there are about 50 to 55 students moving in each day of the 4 days in 4 time blocks. So it's a logistical kind of dance that we're playing. So that's why we're asking, again, to limit the number of people you're bringing. And unfortunately, as soon as you get done with your time slot, to sort of go into Asheville or go other places so that that next group has kind of clean, like clear hallways and everything to move their students in. I hope that helps answer things.
Tachi, I would just add that we want people to adhere to our community guidelines as well. So do bring your mask with you. I know it can be very hot this time of year, but we're going to be in ours as well. And you want to try to keep your distance in hallways and just basically observe the guidelines that we've set out.
Absolutely. And as folks drive onto campus, we will do temperature checking and the questionnaire of asking about your health and how you're feeling that day and if you've been exposed to anyone. There was a question about requiring testing before coming. We're going to send the Buncombe County self-checker just as a helpful, are you having some other symptoms? Or are you feeling some things? That will be required before you come to campus, but not in an official COVID test at this point. But yes, when you're coming to campus, we will sort of all be adhering to all the pieces that you'll see all throughout orientation. And that will be including of every one of the student staff. On the move-in day, we will provide a grab and go lunch. So again, it's not very much a sit and hang out. It's here's your food as you're heading back home. So hopefully that will work for families and be understandable in this time.
Great, thank you, Tachi. We'll jump over to our next question here. This is probably a question for Kathy or Paul. Will there be classes the week of Thanksgiving remotely, or will students be off that week and begin exams the following week?
I can take that question. So we've planned our semester to really to close the residence halls just prior to the Thanksgiving break, so that students will end the Thanksgiving break and then return home as if it's the end of the semester. Now they'll still have finals that will take place, and they'll do those remotely. So the semester will finish, and folks won't be here on campus. They'll finish remotely, and that allows us to keep our semester short and to really move folks on and lengthen our Thanksgiving and winter break there as well. So that's how the end of the semester will take place. We expect students to leave there prior to what would traditionally be a Thanksgiving break, and then do finals remotely. Thanks.
Thanks, Paul. I'll just jump in. There's a concern about the possibility of an early closure and the students not being credited or refunded. I believe, the way that President Morton answered the question earlier in the presentation is that we're planning to remain open. Students can choose to leave depending on their circumstances, and the withdrawal information was in the most recent FAQ document based on our timeline for withdrawals. But Lynn and Belinda, I don't know if either of you all want to jump in with any additional details on this one. The question is about, completing the semester online. And I think what you had said in the presentation is we're planning to remain open as a campus.
Yes, that's correct. And I also said, barring some kind of government edict, we certainly would not flout the law. But we do not plan to close. We plan to shelter in place, do whatever is necessary for the health and well-being of our community. And I do think that every family has to make their own decision about their comfort level with that. And there are so many of these kinds of decisions to make, if you're comfortable with that approach.
Okay, we'll move on to our next question here. This one is about visitors to campus and how students will be interacting with the outside community. And will there be some sort of pledge to sign? There will be, as part of our All in This Together commitment to each other. As far as prospective student visitors to campus, we do intend to have limited tours that we're still working through the protocols for right now, and modifying our tour script to minimize the number of indoor spaces that students are entering and their families. But maybe Paul, if you would like to answer the part about how students are interacting with the external community, maybe as far as student activities goes.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. We certainly intend to really limit the amount of exposure, as Lynn said in the introduction, to the outside community there. So we will not be taking students as we normally would into Asheville and into activities. So we're going to really ask our students to be here and really only allow essential guests and visitors to come to campus. So, and most importantly, what we'd want our students to do if they do go off campus is to follow the health guidelines and the expectations that we would want them to follow on campus, off campus, so that if there is an overriding reason for somebody to be off campus, that they would do so safely, so that they're not exposing themselves or taking risks off campus that would then translate to on campus. And as Lynn said, we intend to strengthen that language in our next iteration of the FAQs coming up.
Paul, I would just add that guests are going to need to be approved in advance. And so the vice presidents have oversight over all of the areas, each one over a separate area of the college. And we are asking anyone in a specific area to clear any visitors with their vice president. And we certainly want to keep those to a minimum.
Thanks, y'all. Question about athletics. Johnny, any news on athletics for the fall?
Hi, everyone. Great question. It's definitely a hot topic in the news lately. Some direct updates going on right now for us. As of last Thursday, our mountain bike cycling season was canceled. And so unfortunately that sport did get canceled this past week. And then actually yesterday, we participate in the United States Collegiate Athletic Association, and they did determine to suspend fall championships. That does directly impact our cross country and our soccer teams. So therefore, as you can tell, this is definitely an area we are analyzing. We're expecting an update from NCAA guidelines this week, but we as a staff have been discussing this in detail, and we hope to have more of a specific update on our outcomes later this week. So I know it's not a specific we will have more of a specific answer for you soon. I just appreciate your patience on that. But it's, as mentioned earlier, things are changing by the day, and these are definitely concerns, and we're addressing them.
Thanks, Johnny. Kathy, this next question, there's a few in here about the work program and how work crews will be operating in the fall if they cannot be in close quarters.
Sure. The work crews, it will be very dependent upon what crew you're on, but we've been working with supervisors to develop a mix of remote projects that students might be able to work on outside of the workspaces, and then also what kinds of accommodations we can put in place within the workspaces. So we'll be practicing social distancing, masks will be required indoors as they will everywhere on campus. We'll also have certain kind of modified tasks so that students who might be working together more closely might be working more independently in the space, and we'll be rotating our schedules more. So we may be expanding hours of particular crews so that there'll be less people present at any given time. We also have regular work crew meetings, which is a chance for the crew to get together, and those will be managed with a variety of outdoor spaces potentially for some crew meetings, as well as some remote meetings. So it will be a mix of that, much like classes will be.
Thanks, Kathy. Belinda, I've got a question about dining for you. Just people wondering how we're going to practice physical distancing in the dining hall and other things we're planning to do to limit the number of students that would just be there all at the same time.
Yes, we're going to be setting up the dining hall for the queue going into the dining hall. There will be things on the floor to ensure physical distancing, as well as we're going to have overflow in the Cannon Lounge for the queue and for additional places to sit. So we will be setting up tables and such in the dining hall so they are at a physical distance space of 6 feet. There will be no self-serve. Everything will be served for the students so that they don't have to worry about touching anything. There will also be to-go boxes so that students can take the food and go outside. We have nice patios that they can sit on. We're adding more picnic tables around campus so that the students can take the to-go boxes and go sit outside.
The only thing I would add to that is that we contract with a national company called Sodexo, and Sodexo has been formulating very carefully their approach to dining across the country. So many colleges and universities use Sodexo, and they've spent a lot of time trying to figure out their protocols and make sure that we do it correctly.
Yes, I just met with them today and they continue to enhance their protocols. They are an international company, I would add, so they have had experience with this overseas as well, where places have opened up before the United States. So they have very strong protocols in place. There will be times that we close the dining hall so that we can do additional cleaning and sanitation in between all of the meals.
Thanks, y'all. Jay, I think these next questions are going to be for you. Wondering about the classroom experience and what students can expect, how things might look a little bit differently this year in class.
Sure. First of all, I think the biggest thing to emphasize is that you choose Warren Wilson for the quality of the teaching and learning experience. And we anticipate that that quality will shine through in everything that we do, whether it's online, in person, or some mix of the two. And that's likely what every student is going to be experiencing, is some kind of mix between face-to-face interactions in the classroom and out of the classroom, because it's important to note we are a very experiential place, and faculty are already planning a whole range of creative solutions to having classroom spaces outside, to doing, walking labs and field trips, and then also doing interactive and I think highly engaging online learning that can take place anywhere, right? Whether that's in a student's dorm room or whether a student is electing to take the majority or all of their courses off campus and remotely. We also want to state that we've been working really hard as a faculty. I've been really impressed with this faculty. They're not contracted to work in the summer. They're 10-month contract employees. And the vast majority of them have voluntarily participated in faculty development workshops throughout the summer. These are intensive workshops. They're not just 1 hour watch a webinars. These are intensive workshops with our faculty development, our Center for Faculty Innovation and Excellence. And they've been working through the best practices, the kind of best teaching that can happen in an online space, how you can make online learning interactive, how you can create spaces where the learning is as engaging as it might be face-to-face. So, I think for me, what I'm most excited about is that when something crazy like this happens for teachers, the best teachers come through, right? The best teachers shine because they're the ones that tend to be intellectually curious. They tend to be flexible. They tend to be creative. And what I've seen from the faculty thus far at Warren Wilson has really given me a lot of confidence about the quality of the teaching and learning experience we'll have in the fall. To be specific around the classroom, physical distancing will happen in classrooms and labs and in studios. Students and faculty will be in masks, and we'll have a number of protocols around traffic flow and patterning in terms of getting in and out of the classroom and that sort of thing. But it will feel different, and I think it's important for the students to just sort of be ready for that. But I also hope that it will feel inspiring and it will feel potentially transformative because of the quality of the relationship that you will have with some really amazing faculty that we have here at Wilson.
Thanks, Jay. There are a couple questions, and I forget that, not everybody who is on this call has even been to campus. You're all incoming students, and there's questions about how many acres of land we have and what outdoor spaces we have. And, I'd love for Lynn to actually tell her, visit story about how we use our outdoor spaces. But just off the top of my head, there's a lot of, formal outdoor spaces that we have on campus. There's pavilions, there's covered spaces, there's covered porches. There's a lot out there that's right beside buildings and out into the forest. I don't know exactly how many outdoor class spaces we have, but I would say a lot. And the number of acres that we have is over 1,100. But Lynn, I don't know if you want to jump in with your land story.
Sure, Zan. When I was interviewing for this job in the spring of 2017, I was taken on a tour of campus by Dr. Dave Elam. He is our forestry professor and recently appointed since I became president as our Dean of Land Resources. And I was so blown away by the campus. We were down on the farm and I said to Dave Elam, this is amazing. Look at the extended classroom you've got here. Because as a faculty member for so many years, I always think about the extended classroom. It's not just what's inside the building. And Dave Elam said to me, you know what? This is the classroom. This land, this farm, this garden, this forest, for all disciplines, we are so much a part of our environment and it's so important to us. He said that building up there on the hill, the brick and mortar thing, that's the extended classroom. So I think we already sort of have in our DNA this idea of being connected to our outdoor space. Of course, as the weather gets colder, that will be more challenging. We also have rainstorms, in the late afternoon, so it's going to require a little bit of moving around. At this point, we have 4 tents, and Belinda Burke and I were talking yesterday about deploying those 4 tents across campus for use by groups, also physically distanced, even outside. So we think that we do have some pretty good options for being outside. Lots of porches, as Zan mentioned, and patios and stone walls and all kinds of space to be.
All right, Tachi, I got a couple of questions here for you regarding move-in and orientation, when folks will receive their schedules and the exact dates for move-in.
Sure. I've been trying to answer a few individually, typing those in, but move-in dates for our new students are Friday, August 7th through Monday, August 10th. Transfer students are moving in Tuesday, August 11th. Now here's an overlap. First year students will start all the required orientation sessions other than a few meetings through the weekend on that Tuesday. But transfers have a different schedule than new students, so that's how we're able to shift them the extra day. I will be sending a little closer to August, another email sort of PDF attachment that has a lot more information about day-to-day pieces. Yes, there will be some virtual sessions. There'll be virtual live sessions to be able to do question and answers. And there will be some in-person small group sessions. Part of our piece of working with cohorts, or sort of our orientation group, is that each group will have a leader that's an upper class student who will work with them to answer questions, will go with them to the dining hall on their assigned times for meals so that we can navigate sort of the social distancing pieces during orientation, as well as show them campus and get them acclimated that way. But again, in our 10-person groups, and it's very small. So that schedule and some more of that information, again, is going to come before you're coming to move in, as well as a packet of information during move in. But we wanted to make sure we had all the questions answered and figured out all the pieces before sending that out too early. So hopefully that helps answer that.
Thanks, Tachi. I think this one's for you, Paul. There's a grouping of questions, a cluster of questions about kind of whether parents fit into that category with visitors. So I know we kind of talked about strengthening that language about not highly discouraging visitors and highly discouraging students leaving campus. How does that, or doesn't it, apply to parents, especially parents who live locally?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I will add on the part of Tachi's answer. We are looking for tomorrow to send out move-in dates, as she has said before, in terms of when you'll find out about move-in dates. So visitors, yeah, as we said before, what we really need to do is limit the amount of contact and limit the visitors for that. And I would say at this time, what I'd like to see is if there's essential things or parents need to come, to just really work with us and work with the office here, work with our student life office. We would like to cut down if folks are just coming socially to visit or to do that. We've actually gotten really pushback from our students to say, can you please limit the amount of visitors on campus? So really for this semester, that's what we're looking to do. I understand if there are specific things that parents, especially if you live local, or if there's stuff that we need to be in contact with your student about, then of course we would work with you in order to do that. But we would just ask that we would limit that to really only essential things. I know I would have a hard time with that as a parent as well, but I think what I want to do again is remind, if there is visitors, that we would make sure that we're doing social distancing, that we're following the 3 Ws, that we're being, following our health protocols as well.
And Paul, not to throw it right back to you, but speaking of health protocols, there's a couple of questions in here about in the event that a student does showcase symptoms. Can you walk us through the protocol from the health center? Where is the nearest hospital for folks who aren't familiar with Asheville, closest testing center, that sort of thing?
Yeah, be glad to. I've been leading a health protocols group, but we've been meeting all summer to put plans in place. So we have a very detailed protocol list that will include if there are students that exhibit symptoms, or you're just concerned about the way you're feeling, that may be put COVID into a category of what's going on. There's lots of other reasons why students may feel sick as well. So the first step will be working with our health center, doing a telehealth visit with our health center, because the last thing we want somebody to do if they're not feeling well is to have them walk over to the health center. So we'd want them to stay in their room, and we'll provide them with that contact to visit with one of our nurses online, and they'll do an initial screening. If they feel like you really need to have a test or to move on to get a test, we're working with Range, which is an off-campus urgent care. They've been great partners with us back in the spring as well. So we'll arrange for a test for you to have a test. I guess before the test, you'll also have a telehealth visit with Range, and they'll be screened by one of their medical folks specifically around COVID and COVID symptoms. If it's determined that you do need to move forward with a test, we will get you to Range. Range is just one exit over in Black Mountain, and to do a test. Now, as Lynn mentioned, we do have an off-campus isolation and quarantine facility at Blue Ridge Assembly, which is a YMCA camp. Anybody that's concerned that needs to be isolated or in quarantine will be then given a room it's a private room, it's an air-conditioned hall with a private bathroom off campus while we work with and follow the health protocols. Those health protocols are evolving. Our county updates them. It does seem like hourly in terms of what are the expectations and how we follow that. But we want folks to know that you'll be worked with very closely. That includes meals. You'll have an individual case manager that will work directly with students if they do end up in our quarantine facility. As part of either isolation or because of a contact that you may have had with somebody that had positive symptoms. So we will work very closely with them, as well as following up with our nurses will be following up with you. And in some cases, if you are positive, the county nurse will be following up with you. So you'll have a packet of information, with you, as well as things you would need to kind of keep yourself healthy. And following that, I'd remind folks that the things that we ask you to bring when you come, that includes stuff to help you stay healthy. And if you do get sick, that we would want you to prepare, for that. So bringing some fever reducers, bringing some some basic medications with you, as well. A thermometer that measures body temperature. We'd want you to bring that as well, so that you can monitor your temperature while you're in that facility. And of course, we work with families and parents, and we want folks to have contact, with all the help that we can provide. Hope that helps and answer some of the questions.
I think this is a good place for me to mention that MAHEC, that I talked about earlier, the Mountain Area Health Education Center, has formed a rapid response team for all 6 of the higher education institutions. And what they're planning to do is to staff that with RNs, so that if we had an outbreak, not individual questions or cases or tests, but some sort of larger outbreak, they will come on our campus and they will bring the testing with them. So we're currently working out all the details on that, but it is certainly wonderful to have MAHEC as that partner. They will process insurance as well. Sometimes people ask if we're going to do free testing at the college, and we are not planning to do free testing. Students have insurance, and there are some free testing options available around in the area. And Paul is better qualified to talk about those, but they've been opening up more testing centers in Buncombe County. Some of those are without charge.
Yeah, I can follow up on. I see there's a follow-up question about how we'll provide transportation to those that don't have transportation, both to Range and to Blue Ridge as well. So we'll be providing that transportation. There is a testing throughout, especially through the month of August, when folks coming. Our county has opened up a testing facility, a free testing facility down at our Ingalls, which is really close here in Swannanoa. On Tuesdays, there's a clinic that opens up in the parking lot that has been and will continue to offer testing throughout the month of August, is what they've committed to. That may change, but for right now, there is a place to provide that free testing that's just right here a couple minutes away.
So I can answer a couple quick fire questions, and then Paul, get ready. I'm going to bring you back. But There was a question about when is fall break, when is spring start? Fall break, the single day is Friday, October 2nd. The break itself is the 2nd through the 4th in October. January 11th, courses begin in spring. So those are those dates for you all. And there was a question about the questions. Just a heads up that, you know, again, we now have more questions on here than we started with. So you've been answering almost 50 questions in this time, but we will be continuing to put those questions that you submitted through the FAQ into the next round of FAQs. We'll take these questions that we didn't get to and put them there as well. I know we're coming right up on 6 o'clock, so we will close at 6 after this next question and then stay on for 5 more minutes to get as many more questions answered as we can. My question back to you, Paul, is will students, there's a couple of people wondering whether students need to move all of their items out of the dorm on November 20th or just themselves and what they need for the break.
Yeah, I'll answer a couple questions around that. No, they do not need to move everything out of their residence hall when they leave for winter break. That's typical of what we do. We would ask that they think about all of the things that they're going to bring and perhaps not bring as much stuff with you as you can, as you'll be out before hopefully winter hits here there as well. But no, that you would leave your items there for your return in the spring.
I'll jump in. A quick question for Johnny, considering athletics and some of our outdoor programs. Will gyms and our facilities on campus be closed, or will those remain open? And what is our plan for some of our outdoor programming?
Yeah, so I think maybe there's an academic lens in here as well. So I don't know if Jay wants to jump in, but because I think that one of the questions was specific to the outdoor leadership program. So in my area, we have the outdoor programs where we have a lot of different programming dealing with the outdoors. And with that, our planning for that is definitely to still have programming that will all remain and happen on campus though. We're lucky to have so many acres and a lot of things right at our fingertips. So we're going to take advantage of that. And then as far as our gym goes, DeVries and Bryson, provided we stay in phase 2, we're required to keep our gyms closed. And so when we move into phase 3, that's when we'll be able to open them up and intend to. So hopefully that gives some direction there.
We are going to have limited transportation off campus for what we hope are obvious reasons, but we will be prioritizing obligations that students and faculty have that connect directly to the academic curriculum or to graduation requirements. So for example, if there's an internship site that's been deemed appropriate for a student to visit and it's part of a graduation requirement, we will prioritize that. Or in the outdoor leadership program, if there's a skills course that's required as part of that curriculum, we will do our best to prioritize that. We're working through some of that as we speak in terms of both asking the faculty to be flexible in terms of how they're doing the experiential components of the curriculum, and also making sure that we have the capacity in terms of our motor pool to do it in a safe manner.
Thanks, y'all. We're coming right up on 6 o'clock. So for those of you who have to leave us right at 6, we realize this is a strange welcome to the college, but we all really wholeheartedly, like President Morton said at the beginning, welcome you all and really look forward to getting to know you in these circumstances, and just appreciate your time tonight and your sending in questions. We just really appreciate you all. And we will continue for about 5 more minutes. So let's see. There's a question, Tachi, about what students should do once they move in. Should they go back out with their parents or should they stay?
Yes, very good question. So every new student will have an assignment time between 2 and 4 p.m. where they'll be working with the WPO about the paperwork and to get their student ID. So if you happen to be a student who gets the 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. time slot, that's a little ways to wait, right? So yes, you can go off campus with your parents. You could, get other things that you need for your room if that were the case. But then you'll have the assigned time. The email tomorrow morning will explain that. 8 to 10 a.m. gets the 2 p.m. time slot and so forth. And then from that point, pretty much by that late afternoon, our ask is again, all family members and helpers are gone. Students have now stayed and are going to stay through that entire time. We'll have assigned times for dinner with the orientation leader, who will be your small group leader. That will be your first time that you will meet in person, in a mask, socially distanced outside, and that they will sort of take you through the rest of that. And then each meal after that point, you'll kind of have the person with you, and we'll be adding, because we're not adding all of Friday into that one small group. It will take us till Saturday, but then your group will sort of really stay together throughout all the pieces of orientation, if that helps.
Thanks, Tachi. Belinda, I have a question here for you about if a student opts to be online at the beginning of the semester, will they be charged for room and board? If you can talk about some of those different options for families.
No, if the student is going to be online and living off campus, of course, they will not be charged for room and board. If they opt to live on campus and opt to do online, they will be charged for room and board. But if a decision is made and you've already been charged for room and board, and then you decide to live off campus and go online, we will make the adjustments on the account.
I would add to that we do have a policy in place that we've shared. I believe it was in our latest FAQs about the refund policy that's been in existence for some time. And so there are refunds within certain periods of time after people return.
Yeah, if you withdraw, our withdrawal policy was in the FAQs. If you have any questions about that, please reach out to student accounts. They would be able to explain it to you as well. And that withdrawal policy is through week 7, and it's prorated through that time period.
And Belinda, a quick follow-up. I just noticed another question about specifically for our students on the Milepost One scholarship and NC free tuition, our students on our free tuition programs, if you could speak to their options as far as being online versus fully in person.
Yes, if they decide to be online again, if they're going to live off campus due to reasons related to COVID, we are doing an exception for this year to allow them to live off campus and maintain their NC free status. Those will be conversations too that they'll need to reach out to student accounts and, fill out the online form so that we can appropriately adjust their charges.
Tachi, a couple more things about move-in. Is there a place that students can find a list of things they need for the dorm, and how much of orientation is going to be in person?
Very good questions. Residence Life, under our housing part of the webpage, does have a list of suggested items to bring just as a general year, as well as things that are not allowed according to our policies. But we are also linking that in the email that will be sent in another week or two about specifically with COVID about having masks and about would be great to have your own thermometer and some other pieces of your own health kinds of related pieces. So that information will be forthcoming. The other part of the question about how much will be in person, again, those are still details that we're working out, but I can say that there will be at least every day 2 in-person sessions. Again, a lot of times around meals. We're going to do at least one person's social event for the students in that small group. Social distancing, wearing masks, all those pieces that we have to keep saying and are very important, but we will have some of that piece. There will be a couple exercises that we're doing in person, but I'm still working with all the facilitators who generally give the information about their departments and their areas as to what works best. So some of those will very much be virtual sessions to watch at certain times or sometime throughout the weekend. But a lot of things will have that virtual live component. So we'll all be watching that session and be able to do question and answers. And the orientation leaders will be with the small group so that they can help answer additional questions during that time. But again, the schedule will come out shortly.
Okay, great. We are approaching 5 after, so we are unfortunately going to have to close things up. We are tracking the questions that have remained unanswered, and we'll do our best to address those in our upcoming FAQ document that will be released this Friday. If you have additional questions, please feel free to contact us individually if you have more specific questions that we can answer. And I will turn it over to President Morton to sign us off.
You know, I am really aware at how difficult a decision this is for families. I'm the mother of 3. My kids are grown, but I really believe that if an institution can open with well-being at the center of all they do, we are that institution. We care very deeply about each and every single one of the students. That being said, as we've said before, the future is unknowable. And as many plans as we can make, it's going to really rest on us and our community to make this thing work. So I know that you're thinking very deeply and very carefully about your choices. And we certainly hope that we are going to be able to be here, be in person. It'll be different, but we'll still be the community that we always have been. So best of luck to you in working through this and making the decisions that are the best for your family. And know that we do look forward to welcoming you to the Warren Wilson College family. Thank you so much for being here. Great questions. And we'll continue to publish our FAQs as more come forward. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.